Now I know the difference between great coaching and just natural coaching.
Right.
And
What
I
are
think
some of
they
the
do.
differences?
For me personally, the differences were in not listening with an agenda. Okay, so as a leader
Right.
and a mother,
Yes.
or a sister, or a
Right.
friend, I always keep an agenda of what I think that would be really helpful for them. And as a professional coach, you really learn to let go of that and to just hold the space for the other person. It's no longer about me. That was hard
Right.
because I know what would really benefit you, Jim. Really know.
Right. Exactly. Right. Right.
It's like, no. So what is it for you? What do you want out of this? And where do you want to go? And then they say something and you go like, and not to show that, but to just get really curious. That took a whole new relearning for me.
That's fascinating, huh? When you think about it, because you were coming at it from a different approach, and then as you learned a little bit more about it and applied sort of the essence of who you are to it, then it really rises to the surface in a beautiful way, huh?
Well, when we're reacting, we're basically not in control. We're driven by our emotions in that moment, as opposed to we are in charge of our emotions.
Right.
The reason, so it's interesting, Judaism tells us that the brain is for a reason above the heart. Because at the end of the day, we are in charge of how we react. We are in charge of our behavior. If we, and you know, what's in the heart is like you have passion, you have love, you have all these things, but if that's not getting balanced by some like context of legality, let's say, and respect towards others' right to have equal safety as we all do, then it can get out of hand very quickly, as we see in the news every day.
Yeah.
And so the two of them play an important role. The heart needs to be noticed, but then it's like now you can choose your response, and that's where the responsibility comes in for all of us.
Right.
How do we, what do we choose? That's up to us. That's where free will comes in.
Exactly right.
It doesn't happen natural just like that. What it does is fundamentally it empowers the person to take control back of how they show up. In the moments when they feel they are normally losing it.
Yeah.
Right? So young mothers with young kids who love a nice, neat, organized home. Yeah, well, a toddler's not going to help with that. And now they're losing it, but they are caring moms. They want to be there for their kids. And I'm like, how do I not lose it? Like, how do I overcome that? And to say, okay, this is what positive intelligence helps you with. It helps you first recognize that your desire for a neat, nice home is actually one of your core strengths and qualities. To organize and to make sense of things and to provide a safe environment for others. And the empathy you have. When you're losing it, it's like it becomes something that you feel you're losing control and it puts you in danger. That's often a pattern from the past, right? So the positive intelligence approach teaches them within 6 to 8 weeks a method, very simply, to say, I'm noticing, I'm feeling that way, I'm going to stop what I'm doing right now. I'm going to do what we call PQ reps, positive intelligence reps. So that's those tactile exercises, and choose any one that you like. Some people like the rubbing the fingers, others like a breath. I like the touch on the table because I work at the table a lot and nobody can see when I'm doing this.
Just below the lens level.
Below the lens level, right. And now I can look at the mess and say, okay, so what really is important right now? And I right away know it's my kid needs to explore and they need to develop motor skills and to have some fun, and they need to be safe. So I'm starting to develop a rule that says, okay, for you to be safe, you need to stay away from the stove, and there is no two ways about that. Or you need to stay away from certain things that would have them not be safe. There have to be some guidelines always. But now they're able to access that easily in the moment. That's a game changer.
That really is.
I have to say I am not as deep on the theory of, and even the practice, I would say, because to me that gets very much into a therapeutic space.
Yeah.
So like the therapy where you go really do psychoanalysis, go back.
Unresolved issues.
Unresolved issues. You go back into the past to try and unravel what happened. All of that. In coaching, that's not really what we do so much.
Right. Okay, he's on that team, but I'm not seeing the rivalry. What I'm seeing is skill and talent that individual has. You're sort of lifting them out of even the team atmosphere and looking at the individual and what they're bringing to the table that's helping that particular team, which is a phenomenal way to do it because you apply that to the work you do with the Bridgeford group. Right. You can come in, you're not going to pick the sides, you're not going to pick the teams, but you can deduce the different scenarios and different dynamics, and the person that is this rock star and is making things happen, and the person that needs a little encouragement and lift up. And that it doesn't always happen in business. There's departments and teams and cubicles, and they're all part of the same umbrella, but oftentimes, you know, they are going against each other, and it's not always cohesive. So I think that's an advantage, because I think you are looking at the bigger picture when you are you know, noticing that person that just did that great shot.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it was something I've only learned like in the last 2 years, and was
It's
able
cool when
to
you learn
start
stuff like
seeing
that, isn't it?
this is actually my superpower.
What would you say is probably the most underused or maybe underestimated skill to help people connect with others?
Is articulating what they're noticing about them, make them feel seen.
So it's
Hands
coming back
down.
to seen. Yeah, seen
Hands
is big.
down.
Yeah.
Hands down. And it's something that for some reason is so hard for us. And yet we are so good at it. We're so good at, we have all the senses, and often when we talk about seeing, it means people first, you know, the first question I usually get, especially during COVID times, was like, well, but how do I do this when I have a virtual team? I don't really see them at all. True. But when we see, we don't really mean just with the eyes, because we see with our whole body, with our whole being. We perceive the other being. And that goes back to the soul level, though we don't have to talk about that to people who are maybe not so open to it. But it does, there is I'm perceiving what the presence of this person, this being is. It's also a skill that can be learned. And that's the good news for a lot of leaders who may not have that fundamental basis inherently on the empathy level. But this notion of noticing everybody who with any sense of perception would have noticed that guy does not want to be here right now. Most would have ignored that perception that they clearly had, the symptoms there, I can see it, I can sense it.
Right.
But I'm choosing to ignore it because I don't know where it's going. This goes maybe back a little bit to the change you asked earlier about. It's the unknown. Or you choose to just say it and ask a question. As long as it comes from a caring place, the intent is really
crucial.
Important there, right? If it comes from an accusation point,
that's a
now
whole
you better watch out.
Then he's going to get out of the chair and tell you a few
Potentially.
things.